Morning everybody. Cool, morning voice as well. Hope you're doing really well. I am somewhere in Sussex and I desperately cannot give away location for many reasons. But today I've come to show you something incredibly special, and I've just had a look around and they do exist. And it was really weird because they even got me confused at first until I was actually there. But I'll tell you more about the well disguised, because they really are, air raid shelters hidden somewhere in the Sussex region. Stay with me, I think you'll like this one. Come on. Hello and welcome back to the channel. So, we're not going to spend too long here, but I want to tell you about these incredible air raid shelters. So I'm going to give you as much information that I can without giving the place away, really. And there's very good reason for that. Nature habitation, etc, etc. Land ownership's a bit sketchy. So yeah, that's why I'm here really early in the morning, because I didn't want to upset anybody, wake anybody up, etc, etc. However, it's not the point. Today, these air raid shelters are incredible, but they're so well hidden. So, as you can see, the first thing you want to assume when you come down onto this section, little copse here, is you look at that and you think, wow, that's got to be it. And at first, I actually had to second guess it, because I looked at the records of what it stated, and that is an ice house. In fact, I'll head over to it. I've already had a look just to make sure, but it wasn't even the descriptions of what they were. So if I do this, pretty sure it's an ice house. So the big old pit down at the bottom. Pretty sure. So that's the first confusing thing. I was like, no, that can't be an air raid shelter. It's locked up, by the way, so you can't get in it, and I wouldn't attempt to, because as I always say before, I'd never break in, blah blah blah. So what we're looking at is a former quarry pit, and if you can see, we've sort of come in. God, look at that sun, isn't that beautiful? We've come into the pit here, and then it's our typical sort of like chalk-esque pit that we have, and completely surrounding. And then in between these farm buildings you see some more substantial farm buildings, and you start to question it. And then, obviously I know all this anyway because I've read the records, then you see these two air raid shelters that are here. One facing north and then the other one facing east. The easterly one's over there, which we can access both of them, and these are our air raid shelters. Now the rumour was that they might have been designed for an anti-aircraft battery around here, and again, without giving away location too much, this area was very active during World War II, but nothing on a grand scale. So it could have been, they reckon it's more likely for the anti-aircraft site that was possibly here, although I can't find anything on that. It's not to say there wasn't one, by the way, it's just that it's probably well robbed away. But either way, these are definitely air raid shelters. So, sorry, 2 points. They were disguised as farmsteads, which is kind of unusual, because the unnecessary reason why you'd actually even want to disguise air raid shelters like this. But it's clever that they've done that, and these properly blend in. Now, the original brick foundations here are actually original. Actually, it's the top that have been remoulded. As you can see, got some plyboard on there. But when we come in here, that we encounter are little air raid shelters, and they are rectangular, so we've seen all these rectangular ones before, and I'll do that. Split into two, so the design is the same on both, and yeah, pretty special. Been a lot of people camping on this bit, because I've seen like little candles, chairs and tables where people have been, little bonfire pits, and I'm surprised actually. There's a little concrete seating ledge there as well, which is very unusual. because it's on a farmstead area, I'm sure the toilet situation would have been quite exciting. But the other thing that I wanted to make you aware of is that you can see it's really unusual. You've got concrete, brick, and somewhere around the corner, there you go, that's a good example, on the basin there's some Sussex flint there as well. And what they've done is, actually that's a really good example, we'll come sorry, you see all this Sussex flint that they've put over the top of it, sort of pebble dashed over the concrete. So you've got your concrete slabs, wooden frame door as you can see, and then you've got this flint dressing to really disguise them as something more. And the thing is, you sort of go in and you think, God, there must have been something really even more substantial, but they are exactly what they are. Now, I've not been in this section, as you can tell, so we'll try and crawl through. Oh. So, there's our escape hatches, what we'd assume to be escape hatches. Now the question is, from looking at that, you can see they've replastered that. I'll do that. They've got flint in between that. So the question is, was this at one point continuous, or was there an entranceway? Doesn't feel like there was one, it just feels like, because you can see there's a concrete basin there, which gives us the imprint that it probably was just a looped section. And then again, continues on in there, and we can't get into that bit, I'm afraid, for obvious reasons, because it's way too overgrown. But you get the idea. Another little, I would assume it would have been an escape hatch or some form of secondary exit. Very interesting. The other one is pretty much the same. I'm going to take you to it as well. Like I said, it's not much of a video today, but it's a disguised air raid shelters. Pretty sweet, aren't they? And you can see, like I said, at one point they've had electricity trying to, obviously the farming, they've tried to repurpose these. They were used as farm stores, and then behind us here is the quarry, and behind that wall. Absolutely fascinating. Really is. Right, let's make our way over to the other one. Come on. So here's our other farm shed. You can see where the wall actually faces inward, and that was because they reckon that that would have added to a blast shelter. So our other shelter's behind there, and that's the same with this. Interestingly enough, there's a brick facing wall that's covering up our air raid shelter there. And the rumour was that these were designed, like I said before, to camouflage them, which is kind of strange from enemy aircraft bombarding them. The other two things, whilst I'm here, that I want to point out, there's some flanking walls there. At one point this was used for cattle and cattle screening, so I'm assuming they would have been external farm buildings which would have been within the quarry. And whether it was used for the anti-aircraft battery, which was somewhere around here, or whether it was used for the local workers on the farmstead, which is probably more of a reason what they'd said before, and it's not uncommon that we've seen stuff like that. And then, like we said, pretty sure that's an ice house. Well, I'm almost certain it is an ice house from the look of it. So yeah, let's go and look at the second one. So like we said, we've got the first one here facing north, second one in an easterly direction, and they look exactly identical, and they're quite long, substantial ones. So we've worked out that there's about 3 separate little entrances in there with what looks to be like a blast wall with this brick, but obviously disguised as these farm buildings. Obviously these necessarily wouldn't have been in date, but there would have been farm buildings here from what I could notice from earlier maps. Like I said, it's all about just disguising them. And then, like I said, we've got our flint, which still mostly crumbled away now, but originally there would have been more there. So let's go. Right, so here we are at the secondary air raid shelter. I've never seen air raid shelters disguised before, really. as farmstead buildings are. So this is extremely rare. You can see again the flint. They've buttressed it up onto this very thick concrete. I mean, if you've seen on my channel before, like when we've seen school shelters or air raid shelters, these civil shelters really, you can see in those. And again, I didn't even notice. So that was what we should have looked at on the one on the opposite side. Do we need a torch? Might just put the torch out just in case. There you go. See, it was a square recess. I was right. I'd had a quick scan of this one to see if I could get in, but I didn't really pay much attention. There you go. Obvious escape hatch, I would assume. If we look on the floor, somebody's put a sofa and everything there. There's some graffiti up on there. Look at that. So this one seems to only be 2 portals, whereas the one that we'd seen on the opposite, that had 3, didn't it? So I was just making a note of that, because to be fair, I was so obsessed with looking at the records that by the time I got here I was trying to work it out, because I was thinking, I got fooled by it basically. I was like, hang on a minute, where are they? I was really genuinely fooled by it. And then I get here and I'm like, oh my god, like you take a closer look and you're like, wow, that is really well hidden. And it might not look it from obviously this film, but trust me, when you get here it's pretty surreal. But yeah, I love it. Like I said, I can't give away the where we are because, well, I don't want you to get in trouble, and there's a lot of nature going on. I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to come here early. I wanted to check for any natural habitation. I didn't want to get in the way. Guaranteed you're always going to see some wildlife, but you don't want to disturb too much. So, making notes for ourselves. So, there we go. This is our other one. This is our other portal or entrance. Portal entrance, I don't really care. Do you know what? I know what they are. So yeah, that's what they were reckoning was, when you look on the records, they reckon that these were doubled up as a blast shelter, potentially being the foundations for some original farm buildings maybe that were here. And you get a better idea of the quarry and where it lies down here. Just a tiny chalk pit. Or was it? No, it wasn't chalk, was it? I don't know now. That's an interesting thing. I'm not even sure. It's a lot of flint though, so it probably gives us more of a clue. Like I always say, sometimes it's good to be wrong, and even though there's documentation on this site, doesn't necessarily mean that when you look at what you're looking at, it's going to add up immediately or straight away. Look at that. There's our secondary escape hatch. So let's just try and work this out. The east facing one's got 2 entrances, split in half. The north facing entrance just over there has got 3. And obviously we didn't go into the final one because it was just too overgrown to get round there. There we go though. Absolutely brilliant, isn't it? The disguised air raid shelter is pretty cool. I'm not going to keep putting out my torch. I think you can see me just about. But yeah, pretty special. So there we are everybody, our hidden air raid shelters for today. That was so cool, wasn't it? They might not be that great to look at, but they still survive and they're still here and they are still very much hidden. I can't believe I genuinely was like, hang on a minute. So yeah, look. Air raid shelter just hiding behind there. Obviously, you've got to take into consideration that there's brick foundations there as well, so there would have been substantial farm buildings. I just want to make that clear. Obviously, what you're seeing probably would have looked vastly different at one point. And then our second air raid shelter, there are rectangular ones that would be more common with what we call like civil air raid shelters. Non-rectangular ones that are kind of weird, because even though they're in the bank of a quarry, they're not underground. So actually, if a bomb did hit, you're not really gonna sort of, you know, survive much really. let's be honest about that. We've spoken about these sort of like we've spoken about these shelters before, and we've sort of said actually, really, if there were any bombs that did fall down here, I mean, they're not really going to protect you that much. You know, anything close to a direct hit, you're pretty much a goner. Yeah. But let me just show you these. So again, we spoke about what we assume is the ice house. Definitely not a shelter, because obviously you could see it was an ice house. I'm just going to say that it's an ice house. And then our two shelters. So you can see, I mean, the estate and the farmstead is actually really huge, to be fair. And it's nice to see these. Again, I really wasn't expecting to sort of see what I was going to see, really. And it's quite nice when you come here and you're like, wow, you know, history's amazing. So there we are. The air raid shelters in the Sussex area, should we sort of say, the hidden ones, and they really were. Beautiful to read that documentation. It really was. Just to sort of read what it, you know, like I said, it's a shame I can't give you too much more information on them, because otherwise it would give it away completely. But yeah, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Any more words of Phoenix history. Stay safe. Much love to all of you out there. Spread the word of the channel if you please, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care. Ready? Kapow! Boom!